Wanderer, The Ultimate Hippie Trail Journey is a great read and a hell of a lot of fun. Check it out. Follow the journey and our route on our website at wandererbook.com. Welcome to week 29. We're going to travel from Istanbul all the way across Turkey, first by train, all the way to Erzurum on the far east. And things get very different and very frontier-like when you get that far east in Turkey. Next, we leave out taking local buses from Erzurum in eastern Turkey all the way to the Turkish-Iranian border, crossing over, having a wild night in Iran, fighting them off, and then traveling by bus to Tabriz, through to Iran, spending a night on the streets in Iran, then making it next day a long bus ride all the way to the far eastern part of Iran, Mashhad, a holy city, and wind up in a holy festival. From there, things proceed. After a couple of days in Mashhad, having a hard time getting my visa because the embassy was closed, the consulate, and then finally getting out and heading towards Herat, which was the first major city in Afghanistan, which was my goal. But instead, I had to take local transit, and you will hear the sad tale of getting myself to the border and finding myself finally in Afghanistan, but not in a city. And that's week 29. Let's start out with the particulars. Leaving Istanbul and heading straight east was a big deal for me because it was a turning point. So I said goodbye to my good friend. I only known him about 10 days, but we became good buddies, Lad. And I crossed the Bosphorus and I got to the big old famous train station on the Asian side of Istanbul, across the river, actually it's the ocean, and make it across. And I get on the train and I sit there. It's a 3-day train across Turkey. Wow, that's a long ways. There were points when the train actually stopped and had to go backwards because another train was coming on the track, and there was only one track for both trains at certain points. So it was grueling. Well, the first day I get on there, and guess what? I'm in third class. All the seats are taken. I wind up sleeping on the floor of the train, getting stepped on, drinking some drunk's wine out of his bottle, and having kind of a crazy time. Well, the next day, I found some people to fall in with, a buddy, an Iranian guy on his way home, a couple of young ladies, and we paid extra to get into second class. And there was some beautiful, big, luxurious chairs, and that was a good way to go. Made it to Ankara, the capital of Turkey. That was not impressive, and we just kept on going. Three days on a train, you get off kind of spongy, and Erzurum is like a wild, kind of Western feeling frontier town. And it's filled, though, with a lot of action because people are traveling. It's one of these towns you gotta go through. If you're on the hippie trail overland going to Kathmandu, you are going through Erzurum. And Erzurum is filled with the excitement of that travel back and forth. And we had a wild night. Had a hotel and people are pounding on doors. We're all getting drunk. The food is good. It's a good time. I decided, you know what? I'm not going to spend a bunch of money and get right through to Tehran. So I decided I'm going to cheap it out. I leave the people I was on the train. And I say, I'm taking local transit. But I did finally leave Erzurum after one night, and I head towards the border on the localist of transportation. And I wind up at the famous border with Iran, and I make it to a town called Maku. So I leave out of Erzurum. I'm on my own again, and I'm getting on these very local buses, and we are going slowly, and there's bus after bus, and finally we get to the border and getting across to Iran. It's kind of scary. something funny happens when you hit that border. People start to sit on the ground. They've got carpets to take with them. They do not use chairs. You have now entered a new realm of the East. And it's not like Arabia because the Iranians speak Farsi, a different language of their own, Persian, if you will, and it's a different place. Not like Turkey and not like Arabia. Baku to Mashhad, basically from the far northwest of Iran, all the way across the northern edge, going through Tabriz, first of all, the second big city of Iran, then to Tehran, its capital, for a crazy night on the streets and winding up in a Coney Island-like place where I'm eating goat head soup, and then they bring on the toes, and then another long bus ride all the way to Mashhad, where I find a holy day and a crazy time. And there you can see it in living color in the aerial. Coming into Mashhad, we'll have another adventure. By the time we get to Mashhad, I'm still with my two Pakistani brothers. I don't know how I'm hooking up with these guys, but they seem to know where they were going. And as we're getting in, it's turning light. It's still dark out. And we come to find out there's a holy day and there's no way we can get our visas in the Mashhad consulate for Afghanistan. So we're going to head into town and check out the festivities. And festivities it is. First of all, we make it to the famous mosque. It's the mausoleum of Muhammad's niece. And this town is full of activity, and there are people beating each other with chains and doing all kinds of rituals. And it's quite an exotic place. And I'm being covered up by the Pakistani brothers. They claim, oh, he's from, he's Moroccan, because I put on my jalaba and put my kafaya on to cover my hair so I can get away with it. Well, that was a hell of an adventure. By the time we're done, I can only do one thing, make it to a public bath and get myself clean. We spend the night, though, in a hotel. The only place we could sleep was on a roof because everything was taken up by the people who were pilgrimaging to the town, the thousands and thousands of people in this wild town on the far east of Iran. And it starts to rain during the night. And we wind up sleeping in a broom closet with brooms and mops and things of that sort. And I'm like, oh, I'm done with these guys. Next day, I make it to a train station. Didn't even know there was a train going across, but I find a train station, and there are Western travelers, and I'm a little more comfortable. Mashhad is a serious place. Wikipedia says it's named after the shrine of Imam Riza, the 8th Shia Imam. The Imam was buried in a village in Khorasan, which afterward gained the name Mashhad, meaning the place of martyrdom. Every year, millions of pilgrims visit the Imam Riza shrine. And I wind up in the middle of that, just by coincidence. I think there are maybe several days when they come there, but let me tell you something. There were thousands and thousands of people. And of course, you couldn't book a room if you wanted to. Knowing the Afghani embassy would be closed and visa impossible to procure, we looked for a hotel. Also impossible, but we get rid of our bags, leaving them at a small hotel. And I started to see many men in black silk outfits and carrying some grand flags of very ornate designs. Soon parades of chanting men in the black were coming down the street everywhere we looked. I was wearing my jalaba and quickly put on my kafaya to go underground, as suggested by my Pakistani buddies. Many men were chanting and doing slow rhythms and doing wood block clapping and clapping their hands. It was quite intense, as you can tell, and I wind up with these gentlemen following these crowds into the inner sanctums of the mosque. This is one of the gates leading in to the inner courtyard. And one of the things that made this so interesting was the way that the courtyard and the temple, the mosque was built into the city, and there's also all these institutions that feed off of it, colleges and places where imams teach and all these things. A lot's going on. It is actually considered to this day to be the capital of Islamic studies in Asia. So it was quite a powerful place. The Mashhad train station is kind of like a scene. Why? Because of the fact that a lot of people missed out on getting those visas. So there's kind of a day or two of people that backed up. They don't know where to go. And we have an agglomeration of people at the train station. One of the coolest things I'll ever remember is a fella came, he was an Englishman, and he was wearing a tweed suit. And when he got to the train station, he went over to the side, he took off his tweed suit, and he put on the flowing garb of a Afghani sojourner, if you will. And he was making his way to Afghanistan in the clothing that would make him more comfortable and to return to the scene that apparently he had been to before. That impressed me. Finally, I found a way to get out of there. It took me a day or two, but I found a bus was going to take me to Herat that night. And I hooked up with a couple of Englishmen that I met at the station. Dick and Roger, they were pretty cool guys. And we finally got on the bus and made our way to the Afghani border. It took us a couple of days to get out of there, though. Next week is week 30. It will be an adventure, finally getting the visa and moving towards the Afghani border, not getting through because the bus couldn't make it, and having a fight with the conductor, and then finally getting back together and going on to Herat and spending the week basically moving and grooving and trying to figure out where to go next, north or south. But as you'll see, winding up going towards Kandahar, Afghanistan, in the south, the home of the Taliban. But at the time, it was the Wild West. The Wander is a great read. It uses something we call the active voice. It's a hell of a lot of fun. You feel like you're right there experiencing it with our wanderer. And follow our route of the journey on our website at wandererbook.com. I'm already garbed in my jalaba. I quickly cover my head with my kafaya and go underground, walking amongst the masses of pilgrims to this holy site. The Afghan embassy is closed, so it will be impossible to process the visas today. Thus, I must spend the whole day in Mashhad until tomorrow morning when the embassy opens. Thousands of people are marching in the parade and thousands are watching. I feel incredibly lucky to experience this Muslim spectacle of spectacles. A group of chanting men dressed in black silk costumes march by doing slow rhythms with wood blocks held in their clapping hands. Then a whole parade of chanters doing rhythmic flagellations on their backs with hand-held whip chains. The blood flows down their backs onto their ripped shirts as they alternate slapping from shoulder to shoulder, whipping themselves crimson red with the small chains. I walk down a side street and witness the sacrificial ritual of a live sheep having its head cut off. The blood flows down the street, signaling another group of regimented marchers to get moving. What an intense experience to witness. The ritualistic behaviors of the masses has my jaw dropping spellbound. Finally, I make my way into the vast courtyard of the Mausoleum Mosque. I am carried along by the crowd of thousands into the inner sanctum of the interior of the great mosque amongst an ocean of Shia Muslim worshippers. I make my way back through the endless crowds, snaking my way to an outlet leading to the street that takes me out to the train depot. I arrive back to the safe confines and wait out the rest of the day with the other Western travelers stranded by the closed Afghani consulate.